What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Thoughtful Thursdays. I'm Divya, and today we're going to be talking about whether to zoo or not to zoo. So, as an animal enthusiast or the parent of a young, curious child, or being a young child who is interested in animals and wants to get to know more about these, beautiful, enigmatic creatures of the wild, I'm sure that we all have that impulse to want to go and visit a zoo or an aquarium or any animal holding or exhibition institution such that we can get in closer contact with these beautiful beasts and get to learn more about them. However, with the uprise of the animal rights movement, with animal ethics coming to the forefront of our priorities nowadays, we're often also bombarded with information, very insightful information about the way the animals are treated in most of these establishments, the illegal nature of a lot of these institutions, and now with the Tiger King being on Netflix and that media being available to us, we often take a step back and reconsider whether we should be investing in such establishments or not. So what I figured I would do today is give you a set of guidelines and parameters based on which you can direct your research and then make an informed and educated decision about whether to visit that particular zoo or aquarium or not. So without much further ado, let's get started. So the first thing that I want to address are the parameters that are most often resorted to, the things that the general public usually looks at, and I will tell you the relevance of that and where that fits into the more official guidelines that I'll give you afterwards. So number one is media attention. Of course, this is our most easy access into understanding an establishment, is the coverage by the news and the major media channels. So I think a really important thing to consider when looking at the media surrounding a particular institution is the nature of the attention. Is the attention going towards celebritizing an animal or a particular subset of animals? Is that attention more directed towards research, rehabilitation, conservation, and a true understanding of the species? Or is it moving towards making a spectacle of the animal, making a spectacle or show of that particular subset or species? So that's a really important gauge. Is the attention human-centric or is it animal-centric? Gauge number two, and this is a really, really important one, is are you being promised interaction and proximity to these wild animals? Now, there's no simple way to put this other than this is a huge red flag. Now, although these animals are sometimes bred in captivity, they are still wild animals. They retain a lot of their wild instincts and they do not like interacting with humans. They don't like proximity with humans. This often disturbs them, causes unnatural levels of stress and undue discomfort. And any establishment that promises that you can take selfies with the animals, that you can pet the animals, that you can feed the animals, just stay away from them. Common parameter number three, and that is pictures. Of course, we all love pictures. It's what draws us. It's what enamors us when we see a beautiful animal just, lounged out or roaring. So I'm going to give you some parameters based on how you can use pictures to really gauge whether the animal is in an appropriate holding or not. Number one, look at the enclosure size. Does the enclosure seem big enough compared to its territory in the wild? Look at stocking density. Now, this is how many animals are present per enclosure. And also consider whether the animal is naturally a social animal or a solitary animal. Number three, how close is the resemblance of the enclosure to the habitat in the wild? The next gauge for pictures is the presence of enrichment. Are there things for them to interact with? Are there things for them to explore? Are there ways by which they can remain mentally stimulated? And this will largely translate to the mental state and stability of the animal. And finally, in the pictures, does the animal look relaxed? Are a lot of the pictures showing the animal growling, in a really tense and alert state? Does the animal seem like it's being prodded and provoked? Or does the animal seem like it's just being left alone and the pictures were taken when it was just chilling out? This is also a great sign as to what you're really going to see when you go there. Are you going to see an animal that's being unnecessarily provoked in order to bring out a side that is appealing to us? Or is the animal just going to be left alone? We're going to be asked to observe it in its natural habitat. Okay, fantastic. Now let's look at some of the more official parameters. The first of which is accreditation. Now, this is essentially your stamp of approval from the governing bodies that look at animal welfare, whether ethics are being followed, whether the enclosure sizes are big enough, whether all the standards that a zoo or aquarium has to meet are being met. Now, it's also a harsh reality that less than 10% of the region's animal holding establishments are actually accredited, but these lists are publicly available. They're open access. You can go online, jump on Google, and check whether the zoo or aquarium that you want to visit is accredited under your regional body. For example, in the US, it's AZA, which is the Association for Zoos and Aquariums, and there's also the European Association for Zoos and Aquaria, and then there's the British and Irish Association for Zoos and Aquarium, there's the Australasian Regional Association for Zoos and Aquariums, and so on and so forth. You just have to find which body governs accreditation in your region and then find that list. So the second parameter is organizational structure. Are they a not-for-profit? Are they a social enterprise? Are they a sole trader? Now, these are really important because it shows you the primary motives of the organization. So a not-for-profit means that all of the money that is collected is going towards the cause, and profit is not at all in their mission statement. Now, sometimes I would also be wary of this because a lot of not-for-profits are underfunded, and this makes them have to cut costs on some significant animal welfare parameters just in order to stay afloat. Social enterprises, I feel, are a good balance wherein you're able to maintain more autonomy over your income and allocate your funds accordingly whilst also still making sure that the cause is your primary focus. Finally, I would be most wary of sole traders. Now, these are people who own the establishments. The exhibitions are often in their backyard and all of the profits go to them. So this is the establishment that for me is a huge red flag. Number 3. Okay, excellent. Now this is like the most easy thing to find, and that's the mission and vision statement. It's available on everyone's website or brochures or whatever they kind of put out to advertise themselves. And this is great because you just need to circle words that are of importance to you. Are they mentioning conservation? Are they mentioning rehabilitation? Are they mentioning research? Are they mentioning reinstating these animals? If the vision and the mission really doesn't align with you, that's when you search the next establishment. Number 4 is enclosures. Now this is largely a repetition of what we spoke about in the pictures. Now, often pictures can be misleading, so it's not a standalone gauge, but it is important to consider what you can see in the visual representation of the organization's facilities. And there's 4 parameters based on which you can gauge, and that's enclosure size, enclosure construction, so what materials are being used. Are they housed on concrete floors with bars, wooden floors, or are they given earth, grass, etc.? Number 4 is environmental enrichment. And number 4 is separation from the public. This is the most important thing. So I want to really emphasize the fact that although these might seem like small things, a lot of these parameters are the difference between welfare and cruelty, downright cruelty. So I urge you, when considering the aforementioned, to really put yourself in the animal's shoes and gauge that way. Now that we're all in isolation, I'm sure that we can sort of relate to what these animals go through, so use that as your barometer. Number 5, and that's procurement methodology. Now this is really important. You can maybe sometimes find this online, but you can also find this out once you go to the establishment. If all your other parameters, check out. And this is, where are the animals being sourced from? No legitimate establishment is going to take an animal out of the wild and bring it into captivity. This is just, nah, it doesn't happen. A lot of establishments that are legitimate will rescue animals from such illegal organizations. Captive breeding, yes, it is a thing, but legitimate organizations will captive breed, founded by a very strong research methodology, and will also have genetic stud books that they use to produce the population. It's not just done with, oh, let's put this and this one together and see what happens. It's a very well-researched and well-documented process. Another huge red flag for procurement methodology is if you see young ones without their mothers, it means that they were separated from their mothers and from their herd in order to be put on exhibition, because young animals are often, a huge eye catcher for tourists, and this often happens with young elephant calves that have been put into training camps, and with young apes like spider monkeys. Sometimes it's really bad that the mother will be set on fire to actually separate the young one from the mother because the bond is so strong. Okay, almost done. We're coming up to the 6th point, and that is affiliations. Is this establishment or organization associated with very well-known and well-reputed organizations in the field? For example, Wildlife Conservation Society or Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, or veterinary organizations like Cornell, UQ, RBC London, and so on and so forth, because this really means that they have the necessary intellectual infrastructure to back them, and they're being guided by experts in the field. Okay, and finally, trust your gut. There is no greater barometer than your intuition. At the end of the day, what separates us from the other animals that we share this planet with, it's very, very little. And for the large part of what we are, we're all connected. Even if everything else has said yes, 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 if your gut tells you no the minute you walk into that place, just U-turn and walk right back out. Visiting zoos and supporting such places, legitimate places, is really important because it provides us with an opportunity to get educated. It provides us with an insight as to how precious these creatures are and how much we really need them in order to survive ourselves. But it's also really important that our money and our effort and our time does not go into the wrong hands. Yeah, whatever you decide, choose wisely, and always remember that the first and foremost check is your heart, and we move forward from there. So yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you soon. Bye.